Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my reviews of the Santa Claus's Show on Disney Plus. At this point, you know the drill. Spoilers ahead, and let's just jump right into episode 4. I kind of feel like a broken record, but just like all my other reviews, I'm going to be talking about the nice, which is stuff I like in the show, the naughty, the stuff that I don't like in the show, and we're also going to be doing our Bernard watch. And folks, this is our biggest Bernard watch yet. This one, you're going to want to stick around for because it's a doozy. So let's start off with the nice. This episode ended up being pretty much what I predicted, but it was still the episode going into the show that I was the most nervous about. This is mainly due to the fact that I thought this episode was going to tread a lot of water of what we've already seen in the Santa Claus franchise. It always felt like in the past Santa Claus movies, when Scott would have these situations where he has to go back to normal society, it was just an excuse to give Tim Allen a break from the Santa Claus makeup, which I totally understand. The makeup seems awful. So I was nervous going into this episode because I thought this might just end up being a filler episode, not much going on. It's really the episode that Tim Allen has in his contract that says you don't have to wear the Santa Claus makeup in this episode. But that just wasn't the case. This was by far the best character-driven episode of the series so far. And for this nice section of the review, I would really just like to do a character assessment just to explain why I think each of these characters was so well utilized in this episode. So let's start with the big man himself, Scott, aka the former Santa Claus. I think my favorite part about Scott in this episode is that he's at such a low point in his life, but he's still supporting his family. I feel like it could have been really easy for the creators to make Scott super cynical during this part of the show, just because like he's getting jealous that his family's adjusting to life so much easier than him. But that just doesn't happen. Scott is really putting his family first, and even though he might want to be in the spotlight, he's choosing not to be, and he's allowing his family to flourish in their new roles in a normal society. He's not Santa anymore. He's just Scott. For Carol, it was just super fun to see her in the normal world again because we literally have not seen that since Santa Claus 2. And I think it's pretty evident that the Mrs. Claus sucks. It's the worst Claus by far. It literally is like selling your soul to Santa. I know they're in love, but it's just a weird Claus. Why does it exist? Cal continues to have this golden retriever energy, which at this point I thought would be annoying, but it's still pretty endearing. And his relationship is the perfect amount of terrible Disney forced relationship, and I just love it. But I will tell you, Cal, the reason that girl transferred is probably not because her family moved or because she wanted to transfer. It's probably because you were creeping her out and you were being really weird around her. And that's okay. You've lived in the North Pole your whole life. But just so you know, that's what I'm here to tell you. That's probably why she transferred. And obviously, Sandra got to have her big moment when she outran a horse. And I'm in the camp that any time a show or a movie has a moment when you're chasing a horse, that's a good moment. That's a nice moment. So this goes in the nice category. Plus, we got to see more of her magic on display, and she is officially now a horse girl. So congratulations, I guess. I thought this was by far Noel's best episode. This was the episode that he was the least cringy in, and I thoroughly enjoyed him throughout the entire episode. This was the first episode that I really felt like him and Scott Calvin had an actual connection. It was just fun seeing them like actually connect. When it was before this, it just felt like Scott kind of like pushed him to the side, but seemed like they're legitimately friends, which I really like. Plus, his candy cane duel scene with Simon was a lot of fun, even though we didn't actually get to see the duel. It was also fun exploring him and Betty's relationship. Listen, I get that these elves are thousands of years old, but this relationship and elves' relationships in general on this show will never not be weird to me. These are children, and I can't break that. There's a reason why Bernard stayed a bachelor, because he knew that it would make us uncomfortable at home. That's just the way to go. I think all the elves should be bachelors. But if Bernard wants to have a girlfriend, hey, all power to him. I love him so much, and I would support it no matter what. And speaking of Betty, I thought Betty was great in this episode. It is so difficult for a child actor to carry a scene, but Matilda Lawler, the girl that plays Betty, did a great job in this episode. There were times where I just forgot she was even a child actor. That's how good she was. And also just like a little side note, after we've seen Bernard and Betty as head elf, how the crap did Curtis become head elf? Was there like an election, or did they just feel bad for Curtis so they just made him head elf by default? I just don't get it. I don't understand how he was able to be head elf. It will be a mystery till I die. And finally, let's talk about Simon. In my opinion, I think that this was Simon's best episode. I have been waiting for the moment for Simon to turn heel. And if you don't know what that means, that's a wrestling term. That just means he turns into a bad guy. But I've been waiting for this moment for so long, and it finally happened. This show has been in desperate need of an antagonist or a bad guy, and it's always kind of been hinted that it's going to be Simon. But just seeing this morally questionable Simon is so satisfying to see. He had his moment in the sun the past 3 episodes where he's just a nice guy taking care of his daughter, but the North Pole and greed is twisting this man. But I will say, I'm very disappointed in Simon that he did not learn the lesson that Elmo learned in the movie Elmo Saves Christmas. If you're unaware, in the movie Elmo Saves Christmas, Elmo wishes for it to be Christmas every day, and it destroys the Sesame Street economy. It kills it. It just plummets it. And instead of learning from Elmo's mistakes, Simon is just going forward with his plan. Simon, Christmas can't be every day. Are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? All right, now that I've talked about the nice and done an assessment of all the characters, I would like to talk a little bit about the naughty. I only really had one problem with this episode. Overall, I thought it was pretty solid. And that one problem is the fact that the elves just seem a lot dumber than they used to be. They just seem to be a little too willing to go along with anything Santa says. And I get that he's their leader and their boss, but he's not even wearing the coat, and he doesn't even look like Santa. Say what you will about Toy Santa and Jack Frost, but at least Toy Santa looked like Scott Calvin's Santa Claus and was like programmed to at least try to emulate him. And Jack Frost, even though he destroyed the North Pole and made it this gross capitalism commercial land, he was at least wearing the coat and looked like Santa. Simon is not doing either of those. But that was really my only problem with this episode. Just the fact that Simon is a complete fraud and the elves just are going along with all of it. And none of the elves really speak up about Simon until they literally disappear. What a great work environment. You will not speak up about your boss to your coworkers unless one of your other coworkers literally evaporates. The North Pole seems like a great place to work. All right, now that I've talked about the nice and naughty from this episode, it's time for us to address our Bernard Watch. And ladies and gentlemen, it is time to ignite the Bernard alarm, because Bernard's hand might be in this episode. So just a little context, at the end of this episode, Betty goes back to La Befana's house and finds the Santa Claus coat. Betty ends up asking for La Befana's help, and La Befana assumes, oh, you want me to bring back Scott Calvin as Santa? It's probably not a great idea. But no, Betty ends up just saying, no, I need him back. Just him. And who is him? Who could that possibly be? It's Bernard, folks. She is talking about Bernard. Bernard is going to be in the next episode. Holy crap. And then we cut back to the Calvin family as they're putting together their Christmas tree, and out of nowhere, everyone freezes except for Scott. And then there's a hand that lands on Scott's shoulder, and that's the end of the episode. What a cliffhanger. I think there are 2 potential candidates for whose hand is on Scott's shoulder. The first of these is obviously Bernard, and I think that's a very logical guess, but I don't really think it's Bernard. I don't think the hand and the coat match Bernard at all, but we do know for a fact that Bernard will be in this scene because in the original teaser trailer for the show, Bernard is literally in this scene. So he's going to be in the scene, but I don't think that's his hand. And the second possible outcome, and the person that I think it will be, is another Santa Claus. There are a ton of different Santa Clauses in the background of shots in the trailer that I reacted to, especially the shot that Bernard is in. And I don't think it's a mistake or a coincidence that in the theme song, when the snow globe hits the ground, that all the Santa Clauses start floating up. I think we are legitimately heading towards a Council of Santa Claus, which is super exciting. And also, I just think a logical next step for this franchise. The only thing that makes me nervous about this reveal is that what I have heard is that David Krumholtz is only going to be in 1 episode. And if that means he's in the next episode, then he wouldn't be in the finale. But that also could mean that he is only going to be playing Bernard in 1 episode, episode 5, and then in episode 6, he is going to become Santa. no matter what, I'm going to twist this in a way to make Bernard Santa. You just have to get used to that. But I really hope he's in these next 2 episodes. I'm just trying to keep my expectations low just in case he's only in this episode. It doesn't make sense to me to introduce him in this next episode, in episode 5, and then not have him be in the finale, but I don't know. I'm just wanting to keep my expectations low because I will be crushed if he just doesn't have a big moment. And I still 100% believe that Bernard is going to become Santa at the end of this show. And so many of you have been in the comments on all my Bernard videos telling me, elves can't be Santa, elves can't be Santa. I know about the line, I'm aware of it, but I just don't want to stop believing. So instead of writing elves can't be Santa, write elves can be Santa, just to make me happy, because every time you write elves can't be Santa, it's like you're putting a knife in my heart. And don't put knives in people's hearts. It hurts. It is very painful. So let me dream, and let's just speak this into existence, even if it doesn't happen, and it will happen, that Bernard is going to be the next Santa. But that's all I got. If you have any other ideas or any theories about the show, leave them down in the comments. I would love to read them. I read all of your comments, so if you have any other ideas or anything, I would love to read them and continue the conversation down there. Also, I'm thinking about doing a live reaction to the final episode so you guys can watch along with me. I think it would be super fun. If that is something that you are interested in, please leave it down in the comments. I would just like to see who would be interested in watching me watch the show, and also so we could watch it together, because I think that would be a lot of fun. If you could leave this video a like, I would really appreciate it, and it helps the channel out a bunch. And if you're not already subscribed, slam that subscribe button so you'll be notified for all my future Bernard videos and other videos I'll be making in the future. And if you just recently subscribed, thank you so much. My channel just hit 1,000 subscribers, and it's just been super fulfilling and super fun. So I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much if you've just subscribed in the past few weeks. And if you've been with me since the beginning, thank you so much for continuing to subscribe. I really, really, really do appreciate it. But for right now, I'm going to go read a ton of Bernard fanfiction to prepare myself for a potential Bernard return in episode 5. I'll see you then.